now open the floor for public comments on agenda items. Do we have any public comments this evening? If you are watching us online, please feel free to type those in the chat box and we will read them into the meeting. And we will pause for a minute so you have time to do so. Okay, well then, being that we have no public comments, we will move on to presentations.
All right. Well, our only presentation this evening is recognizing one of our outstanding staff members, who was nominated by Mrs. Mary Pat Monahan from 4th grade at West Oak Intermediate School. So I'm going to give her the podium and she can share her nomination and the reason for recognizing Mr. Smith tonight.
Good evening. My name is Mary Pat Monahan. I teach 4th grade dual language at West Oak Intermediate. I nominated Tyler because he is the essence of a coach. He's available, cooperative, and fun to be around. I made it a professional goal this year to integrate more meaningful technology into my lessons after a year of not really having a choice. And Tyler has been an immeasurable asset to helping me make that happen. He works hard to support all the members of the West Oak campus. He engages students with a high level of enthusiasm and kindness, and he listens to what teachers need and creates useful resources for us. It's a pleasure to work with Mr. Smith, and I'm confident that I can speak for everybody when I say it's well deserved. So congratulations, Tyler.
Thank you, Mrs. Monahan. I echo those words 100%. Here you go, Mr. Smith. Congratulations. No problem. And then I think.
Thank you.
I always like to be on a microphone. I'm going to save it because I'm doing announcements tomorrow. But I really appreciate this district. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Or you can go home.
That is really dizzying camera work. Okay. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our presentations. We're now going to move on to our business agenda for this evening. The first item on our business agenda is the Omnibus vote agenda, and Mr. Rogers is going to talk to us about some new graphs that he is putting into place.
It is more than just new graphs. It is
Sorry.
very exciting financial tool that we have. So we subscribed to 5Cast Plus this year, and we finally got it off the ground. We've just started to roll it out. This is the first month, and there's still a few bugs that I'm gonna have to work out, but it is a very robust financial document. It's 26 pages here, and I'm gonna try to do different reports each month. I'll try to keep this as kind of the standard report. So really the first couple pages is the one that kind of tells the story of where we're at currently. And it also does it's got a great predictive nature on where they anticipate us ending up. So, I'm not going to walk through the whole report, but I'm just going to kind of give just a kind of an overview of some things you can find on here. So for instance, the first page will just detail revenues where we're at now, but it's got some nice graphs as far as where they predict us we should be at and where we are at. So I can kind of make adjustments on the fly rather than digging through 100 pages of financial documents from Skyward. It gives me a great overview on what I can find and where our revenues and expenditures are heading. So I'm just going to point out, so like the first two pages, revenues, expenditures, we're in a great position in terms of we have slightly more revenues than anticipated and slightly less expenditures. And it's got us predicting out really close to where our actual adopted budget is right now. And then the third page does a really cool graph on year-end the year-end fund balance. So it'll track last year's fund balance versus where we're tracking currently. So it takes both our actual reported numbers that I upload, and then it will predict based on the last 7 years of data that I've provided Forecast 5. So it does have a large historical balance for us. And I think some of the cooler items is on, it starts on like the 6 or 7 page when it talks about our capital, our operating funds. That's the operations and maintenance, education fund, transportation, IMRF, and working cash funds. So those are the ones I'll typically talk about versus say the capital projects fund, because that fluctuates every year depending on the projects you may be doing. So right now it's predicting us, currently have a year-end fund balance surplus of just over $1 million if all things maintain its current trajectory. But I could also plug in some knowns that are coming down the aisle. So if I think we're going to be getting some revenues in the next month, say for federal and state grants, I can plug those in and it'll tweak where they predict we're going to end up in the end of the year. But it just provides a nice snapshot for our public and the board, and I think it provides a lot of transparency. And I could publish these on the website so individuals can go in there and kind of click around in real time and see where we're at, rather than just seeing a static PDF chart that we've only been able to provide in the past. So I'll be providing these each month. If I think that there's something new that I would like to point out, I'll do that. But otherwise, if you have any questions, I'd love to walk you through what these graphs talk about. The first 8 pages, I would say, are the more summative formats. Then after that, it'll go by the education fund, operations and maintenance, and just detail out by fund where we're at currently. So if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And then as I kind of dig deeper into this throughout the year, I'll be producing some new reports. And then if needed, we'll hold a finance committee meeting, which we've not had for quite some time, to kind of go over that and see mostly what the board would like to see from me.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those look really nice. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Rogers? Okay, then we will move on to take action on the omnibus vote agenda. Items under the omnibus vote agenda are considered routine and or non-controversial. It will be approved by one motion. If any one board member, staff, administrator, or citizen wishes to have a separate vote on any item or items, that item or items will be pulled from the omnibus vote agenda and voted on separately. Be it resolved that the Diamond Lake 76 Board of Education accepts and approves the omnibus vote agenda items A through E as listed. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Second.
Yes. Okay, the next item on our agenda is for the press policies. So I know it's listed as an action item, but there are 3 questions in the new policies that we need to answer before we can adopt them. So I thought that we could discuss those, respond to those tonight, and then at our next meeting, we will move forward to adopt the policies. So if everyone could look at the 3rd attachment in your board packet, they are, we're going to start with policy 660, and that's on page 89. It's a long packet, so, or PDF. No, there's no easy way to scroll. Oh, really? Well, there you go. I have no idea where you click.
Where'd you tell us to click? Oh, gotcha. And you could click 89 there.
Oh, I don't even have my, there. Okay. So do you see kind of in the middle of the page, there's a question that says, does the district provide anti-bias education and intergroup conflict resolution? So I'm going to read the whole question though, but do you see where it says required question number 1? 105 ILCS 5/27-23.6 entitled Anti-Bias Education allows districts to incorporate activities to address intergroup conflict with the objectives of improving intergroup relations on and beyond the school campus, diffusing intergroup tensions, and promoting peaceful resolution of conflict. Boards that adopt a policy to incorporate activities to address anti-bias education and intergroup conflict pursuant to this law must make available information to the public that describes the manner in which the district has implemented these activities. Methods for making this information available include website, et cetera, et cetera. So the question that we need to answer is, does the district provide anti-bias education and intergroup conflict resolution? I'm going to turn to our administrative team or our administrators to have that answered.
Well, and I would just refer to what you're doing with your SEL committees, whether it's like restorative circles or just anything else that the social work are doing with their small group things. So
Yeah, we're doing multiple things at the, with our SEL committee. This year, we've really kind of taken on the endeavor of offering a district-wide curriculum in all three buildings. So we are doing that and offering that one, I think 2 times per week. One of the things that we're doing at the middle school is we have what we call an Seo Monday, where we really don't have time built into our schedule to implement these lessons. So what we do is we have kids present, for about 5 minutes, and we videotape them and we show it to the entire first grade or the first period class, because that period is just a little bit longer, and then we reinforce it throughout the week then to the lesson and what we wanted for them to take through it. We've offered a number of parent universities. The next one is coming up on executive functioning. That's going to be next Wednesday, by the way. And then also we are looking to really kind of monitor and enhance our staff social emotional health. We're looking to do that by I know Dr. Sharma Lewis is going around our district reading a book on filling other people's buckets. We're waiting for that here at the middle school. But we wanted to do that where our staff could send positive referrals to our, to other teachers and hence, fill their buckets. So we were going to have that. We were going to make a positive referral kind of certificate, and they can post that on their wall above a little paper bucket. So we wanted to kind of offer that for our parents, our staff, and then our students here as well. And as you see, as you guys walk in here, we've been able to hang an SEL banner. This was a banner that we have. I sent that out to all of our teachers in regards to words that we want to have our students feel and what our building is all about. We also sent it out to our students, which gave us a lot of great input. So this was completely made up by our staff and students. So we're very proud of that.
Thank you, Mr. Kynan. On the intermediate side, we spend a lot of time in our morning meeting going through some of our SEL curriculum, which is mainly resourced by Second Step. But then we're also doing different things as far as zones of regulation. We've done a lot of that in 3rd grade this year, and we're going to be rolling that up each year. So next year, 4th grade and 5th grade will get a taste of it, but it'll be rolled into 4th grade. The same thing goes with executive functioning. We wanted to start that pretty heavy in 3rd grade this year and roll that up as well. We had some issues with supplies, but those are in now, and we're starting to incorporate that in the 3rd grade. Again, that'll roll up in the 4th and 5th grade. And the idea behind this is, as Mr. Peterson alluded to, we're doing district-wide things. So we want to be able to have that same language go from Diamond Lake through the intermediate school and eventually into the middle school as well. So those are the pieces that we're working on. Aside from that, some of our everyday things are our PBIS expectations, and then HIP tips and reminding students of what those look like on morning announcements, going through those in our morning meeting, and then those get reinforced by our possum cards throughout the week, which at the end of the week, those that earned a possum card are taking pictures with me, which for some reason is a huge deal, but hey, it costs me nothing and they love it. So we do it. And then we also put everybody who earned a possum card into the wheel of names. We spin it and they get a ridiculously cheap prize that they love. And, so that's how we're rolling here at the intermediate school.
DLS, I would say we have some of the same types of things in place. We use our Cub cards to recognize great behavior from students. We took that this year, not just in the building, but also brought it onto the buses. So we're working in conjunction with our bus company, which has been great. We also have a Burger Wall of Fame. So each week, someone is selected from their homeroom to take a picture with me, and we have it right in the front entrance when students walk in. They also get a little sparkling diamond keychain to put on their backpack so everyone can recognize them as kind, well-behaved children. We also have been doing things with staff. We just added a new addition to our weekly staff communication called Dazzling Diamonds, where colleagues are giving shout outs to one another for great things that they've done and support how they've supported one another over the last week. And then up and coming in these next couple of months, we're going to actually be doing some kindness and community outreach, some random acts of kindness to different community groups throughout as our way of saying thank you and showing that kindness is free.
Very nice, thank you. And then we have, so I think the answer to that is yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and interpersonal conflict is something that we approach here, especially, it definitely has been enhanced through Senate Bill 100 a few years back. But, the practice of restorative justice or restorative practices is something that we do regularly. What we try to explain to everybody, it's not, what did you give that student for that behavior? It's, we approach it as this is an opportunity for them to learn. These are young kids. They're still developing and they're still growing and they're still learning. So we allow them the ability to work out their issues, to learn from them and to grow from them. So and that's through restorative circles, peace circles, parent conferences, some form of restitution, where they can kind of pay it back or help resolve help make right the wrongs that they have done. So we feel like that was just much more beneficial and gives our kids a better opportunity to learn from this so that the behaviors do not get repeated again.
In the intermediate school, we're in the beginning stages of the restorative practices. We use them mainly in our social work groups and also in my office. So instead of going the punitive route, we found that the restorative work is a much more meaningful approach for the students, and it has reduced the amount of behaviors tremendously. I mean, I wish I could give you data on that, but I can just tell you that things that we would see repeat over and over and over again drop significantly because, as Mr. Peterson said, and he's actually led a couple of them in my building to help coach me along, really getting the students to realize what their impact is on somebody else when they choose to do something. And then also it gives the other students some insight as to why this may have happened. And it just builds a relationship between the students, which has been awesome. So that's been a big piece of how we've handled it at the intermediate school.
ELS, we're also in the beginning stages of this with our younger students. Some of it for us has been more of a focus on children really being able to control their own feelings and opinions or reactions to situations that might take place. So of course, always encouraging the deep belly breaths, count to 10, whatever different strategies you might want to use before there's any sort of action that one might take that could be harmful to another student. As far as the punitive piece goes, we step away from that as much as humanly possible, just because our little guys they wouldn't understand really what the point of all that would be. We only take those heavy measures when we absolutely have to, but it's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of what I like to consider circle time together, a little bit of a tea party in my office, and we're able to talk things through and really figure out why things happen and what sort of cause us to react the way we do.
Okay. Did it answer your question, Elisa? Anyone else have any other questions? Okay, the second question that we have to answer that also deals with curriculum is on sex ed. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially there's 4 options, so we just need kind of a response as to what is offered. They want to know whether NSES, which is the National Sex Education Standards. So are the National Sex Education Standards offered? So it says the board does not offer NSES or developmentally appropriate consent education. The board offers NSES and or developmentally appropriate consent education, but the board will not communicate the curriculum chosen in this policy. The board offers National Sex Education Standards curriculum, and the board would like to communicate that in this policy. Or the board offers National Sex Education Standards curriculum and developmentally appropriate consent education curriculum, and the board would like to communicate both in this policy. And the board either does not offer NSES or offers NSES, but does not want to communicate that in this policy. But the board does offer developmentally appropriate consent education curriculum and wants to communicate that in this policy. So basically, I think what the board needs to know is, do we offer NSES? Yes or no? Okay. Do we okay, so if we don't offer NSES, do we offer developmentally appropriate consent education?
Yeah, we do. We do in health. We typically, a lot of materials come out of Candor Health, which used to be Robert Crown. So I'd have to look at which one they use, to be honest. I've never even heard of the national one. It could be based on that, but to Steve's point, we do use the Illinois Health Standards, and they've updated them a couple times recently. I mean, we've been looking at incorporating that, so.
So it looks like the Illinois standards were repealed, if I actually read the question to you, which I didn't do, so I apologize. But the question starts with, let me go back. The repealed family life and sex education programs, which are the Illinois standards, were replaced by the national sex education standards. Okay, so I believe that was replaced in the fall, if I'm remembering correctly. There was a bill that was signed like at the very end of August, and I believe that's what replaced it. So basically, we have not yet adopted those. I think maybe the easiest way would be for us to send you guys this question and let you digest it and send us back what the school is doing, and then we could discuss it as a board. Because I think there's an awful lot of language here that I think it might take a minute or two to kind of work through. Does that make sense?
It does. And I was going to say too, I want to look back at the October policies that were adopted, because it looks here
Yeah,
that NCS was adopted in the fall with policy.
yeah.
So I want to see.
There's a
anything
timeline
changed.
to implement, but I don't think, if I'm remembering correctly, and I could be very wrong, I do not believe you have to implement it until next fall.
This 8/1/22.
Okay, so yeah, so that would, I guess I would frame this question in what is the plan to, what is the curriculum going to be in the fall?
Okay, so yeah, I was just looking at, so the new law, which I was familiar with, he signed, but it is the national standards
Yeah.
is what he signed. So essentially, we're in the process of adopting those, is what we're doing this year. So
Okay.
we're writing unit plans this year across all subjects, including health, and incorporate that. So I apologize. I was under the impression that was an ISBE standard, not the national. So, but
No, it's fine, that's totally fine, and obviously it's new, and hasn't, it's not required to be adopted yet. But maybe we could get a little bit more information, and then we can make a decision as a board as to whether or not we want to communicate that, more of the details, I guess, in the policy.
We'll review it. And I see the choices. There's 5 choices this year.
Yeah. Okay. I think you only need to look at the 4, not the first one, but the rest of them.
The bottom 4.
Yeah. Okay, so that deals with the first 2 questions. Then we go to page 108 for policy 7160, which is about student appearance. Okay, so the question is, if the board would like to expand upon the laws okay, so this student appearance, it was, they added, the district does not prohibit hairstyles historically associated with race, ethnicity, or hair texture, including but not limited to protective hairstyles such as braids, locks, and twists. Students who disrupt the educational process or compromise standards of health and safety must modify their appearance. So the question is, if the board would like to expand upon the law's requirement of race, ethnicity, or hair texture, IASB will amend the sentence as follows. The district does not prohibit hairstyles or hair textures historically associated with, okay, so that's a typo. With race, ethnicity, hair texture, or any other protected classes under Board Policy 710, Equal Education Opportunities, including but not limited to protective hairstyles such as braids, locks, and twists. Would the board like to expand upon the law's requirement of race, ethnicity, or hair texture? Well, that's up to us, yes or no. It's just adding in any other protected classes under policy 710, which I think probably just makes the policy more inclusive, right? Say no, right. Right. It looks like we are in complete agreement on that, right? Okay, great. And then the last one is on page 113. And that is policy 7190, student behavior. The questions actually, I think, are further down. The policy starts on 113. Yeah. Okay. This is, so here's another question for our principals. Are cell phones required to be kept out of sight? I believe the answer is yes. Okay. So now I'm on page 117.
117.
Okay. Okay, so that's it for our questions. We will circle back on the sex ed one before the next meeting, and then we'll vote on them then. I didn't know if anyone had any other questions or comments or discussion they wanted. There's an awful lot of changes in this particular press issue that go beyond just the usual footnote updating. So we can also have a little bit of discussion at the next meeting if people want to take a deeper dive. Okay. Okay, then we will move on to the last item on the business agenda, which is personnel. Be it resolved, the Diamond Lake 76 Board of Education accepts and approves the personnel items as depicted on the agenda. We have 4 new hires, 1 leave of absence, 1 retirement, and 1 termination. May I have a motion to approve, please? Yes. Okay. Moving on to board discussion. Now we will have another rousing presentation from Mr. Rogers on the audit.
Beautiful. Well, I will give you the condensed version of the audit. We will probably have the auditors come out next year to give an overview. Usually every 3 years or so, we'll have them come out and present the audit in a little bit more detail. But I'm just going to point out a couple things, just kind of the keynote parts of the audit. So on page 2 is when it describes, it's really the first page after the table of contents. It'll just describe the auditor's opinion. And the biggest part about that, because we're on a cash basis of accounting, the highest mark we can receive is called an unmodified opinion on regulatory cash basis of accounting. So essentially, it just says our financial statements are presented fairly in all material aspects. However, they view cash basis of accounting, view it differently than accrual accounting. So the district's done on cash basis. It works out really well from my standpoint. I think it presents our financial position very fairly, but the general standard accounting principles like to see accrual basis. So we got the unmodified opinion is very well that we've received it the last several years. The rest of the pages essentially until the end just discuss our financial position, our revenues, expenditures as of June 30th, 2021. And so and again, I'm sorry, I'll point out this audit is several months late. Usually we get this back in October. There was a lot of new standards that came out because of ESSER that they had to push back this audit for all districts pretty much across Illinois. So I apologize for it being late, but the district ended up in its operating funds with just under a $1.7 million surplus. So we had a very large surplus this year. I think we're going to talk about in some future meetings, some different ways to reposition that surplus and different ways to, to spend down some of that money. That is a rather large surplus. The very end of the audit itself talks about really a summary of the audit and its findings. So starting on page 45, very end, it's really a one-page summary of the auditor's results. So you guys can kind of read those at your leisure, but really the two biggest things are at the end. We received no findings related to the financial statements. A finding is generally a big no-no. You do not want a finding in your audit. We've had findings, several times since I've been here. They've all been what they deem kind of immaterial in nature, but they still have to report it because it's generally based on federal and state revenues that we received. So there was no findings to our financial statement, which is good, means our books are in order. But the second one, there's a finding to a federal award, which is required to be reported. So the finding that we received this year, and they also have to report this to Joy every year as well as board president. It's on page 47. And essentially I did not contact private schools within our boundaries to inform them that we received ESSER 2 funding. So it's kind of it's deemed an immaterial finding in nature. I'll just point out that ESSER 1 and ESSER 3 didn't require this, but ESSER 2 did. And it wasn't exactly in the instruction manual when we were applying for this. So the corrective action for this is, we'll make sure that we understand that some of these grants, I'd say I think this is only the second grant that we're required to reach out to private schools, this and Title I. Otherwise, none of our other state and federal grants were required to reach out to, say, the Mundelein Montessori School and say, is there any money that you would like to spend with the students that are in district that attend the Montessori school? So, yeah, essentially it's as good of a finding as we could have received, but otherwise the audit was in a very good condition and we did end up with a very, very large surplus this year. So, are there any questions about the audit itself, the process, what the results were? There's about 1 million pages of this stuff. And then there's also an Excel document that I believe I can attach as well if you guys want to see that.
I think no, your presentation is very thorough. Good understanding of the audit. Glad that there's only a minor finding.
Yeah, I
Good
went well
job.
this year. Thank you.
Let's shoot for no findings next year.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone else have anything for board discussion? No, we had one FOIA request, it was fulfilled. Under notices and communications, as always, we have just a reminder of the board meeting calendar, and that is the most up-to-date one. We have the E-Rate program notification. Do we need to read that? No, it's just an FYI. It's required to be part of the meeting, but okay. There is the Diamond Edge newsletter if you haven't already seen that. There is also a copy of a fantastic article about Mrs. Sullivan in the Daily Herald. So congratulations to her for that. I'm very proud of you. And that is it for notices and communications. Do we have any spectators? Okay. So we now would have public comments and petitions on non-agenda items, being that there are no attendees online or in person. It appears that we have no public comments. So we move on to others. Do you want to talk about the annual donation?
Sure. So as you can see, the Longstreths, who are a very dedicated family, whose son went to school here and graduated and also went to Stevenson High School. So they've been annually donating for at least the past 7 years since I've been here, and they've increased their amounts, as you, for those of you that have been on board for a while, have seen. So, and usually they designate what they would like the donation to be, allocated for. And as you can see this year, it's just, if anything, to offset the sites or offset the costs of any staff members maybe taking on things to pay during the pandemic. So the DLT is discussing it. I've already acknowledged Mr. and Mrs. Longstreth in a note of thanks. And then we always send a follow-up when we allocate the monies of what we're using it for, and then how, and some pictures with it. And then Mrs. Kwan had a great idea of possibly, maybe when things in our world get a little bit more opened up, to invite them in and recognize them later this spring for their generous donations throughout the year. So I will definitely reach out to them. Like I said, once mitigations get a little bit lessened. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then 2 items that we're very proud of that I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Cunningham to share the middle schools to watch information that will be happening this week, as well as some great news on our academic performance. Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. I told her at the PTO meeting I didn't want to plug this thing because I want to make sure we get it. But we did apply. We started talking to the school last spring to apply for this designation. It's called a school to watch designation through the National Forum to Accelerate Middle School Change. They partner with the AMLE. They'll partner with different state associations as well, middle schools, and so it's kind of from what we can tell, kind of the biggest national award you can get as a middle school, outside of things like blue ribbons and things, which are really a different tier, and you have to really be invited to apply to those. So it was a very long application process. It starts at the University of Illinois, and then you go for approval in front of Illinois State University. So it's probably about an 80-page application. It was pretty intense. And so it was a team effort that we put that together. And so we were approved for the final stage, which is a site visit, which is happening this Friday. So thank you to Joy and Margaret are going to actually be a part of some of that. And then we're going to have, we have a number of different panels going on. We have a student panel, we have teacher panels, we have leadership panel. They're going to come observe every classroom and walk through a rubric. And we'll know in about a month if we get that designation, which is accompanied with a kind of a ceremony along with a conference in Washington, D.C. in the summer. So we're very excited, and we're just cautiously optimistic. We just think there's a lot of really impressive things that are happening in all 3 buildings, but in our building, we felt like this was an award that would really speak to what we're doing. So here we go. And that's what we're doing. So if the board wants any information or applications, we can certainly forward that. It's a lot. And then the other one was, and really we have a lot of great things to share at all 3 schools in February as we go through data reviews, and we'll present those things to the board. Then I think this just came from me bragging on something from our own building. We want to see our kids by the time they leave to go to high school. We want to see a lot of progress made in all different subjects. And by progress, we mean growth, where they're starting from. So we're really excited because our 8th grade group, all of our kids that were in tier 3, not counting our students that are English language learners that are in our newcomer program or special ed, but everybody else is now exited. We have no tier 3 in the school. They're all tier 2 or above. That's coming up from their DLS through the middle school, but those are always exciting moments when you're like, through the pandemic, that's some pretty big growth. And we're really excited about that. And again, that'll come out as we share at all 3 schools, but that was something, I don't want you guys to know.
Well, it's good. No, it's always nice to end the meeting on like a really high note. And the one, thank you to all of you for your effort, because I know that COVID, it's been very challenging, and I know that it takes time and work and creativity to change your schedule, make up some of those gaps. So and also thank you for taking the time to apply for those awards. I feel like a lot of times there's very positive things going on in the building, and like the outside community doesn't know about it. And it's always great to be able to showcase all of the hard work of everyone and the kids and to have something that we can be excited about. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Okay, and that concludes others unless anyone else says anything. No? Okay, well then we will adjourn to executive session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity, and for student disciplinary cases. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Yes.